All right, Dan. Well, quick questions are, you've already answered them 100 times, but higher ISOs, what could we maybe expect?
We're probably going to launch. It's probably going to be 400, 800, 1600. We may change that to a slider. Right now, we're just going to commit to that for launch. Certainly, we could go beyond that, but no promises.
And you can confirm that the native ASA is 800?
800. It is an 800.
800? Okay. And do you have any idea about when we can expect firmware updates roughly and what your highest priority is?
Obviously, all guns are focused on shipping a product in July. So what we see spec-wise is what we're shooting for July. That's the commitment. Beyond that, obviously, Blackmagic is not shy about doing firmware updates, releasing new features. 60p is probably the #1 requested feature. We have some thoughts and ideas of what we might be able to do, but we're not willing to commit to anything because we got to ship a camera first.
Absolutely. That's some of the other questions I already asked you to be redundant. Do you know if they're going to come up with any sort of crop mode, like Nikon's got a crop sensor, full-frame camera to use other crop sensor lenses?
We may do that. Third-party guys may work on some of that. Not going to commit to anything out of the door.
All right. How sturdy is the camera? Is it weather sealed at all? Can you beat somebody up with it?
We shot one into the sun. It didn't come back. The problem now is there's only a handful of cameras, so we haven't wanted to do a lot of extreme testing because we only have a handful of cameras. As the next 2 months progress, we're getting more cameras. Obviously, we have to go through all the certification process. The fact that it's milled aluminum and it's, the innards are much like a hyperdeck, which are pretty rugged.
And the only one moving part is the little fan, right?
Right. You got a fan. You got the door. There shouldn't be a lot of, I'm not going to run over it with a tank like I do on our hyperdeck or our heavy-duty mini converters, but, it should be pretty rugged. I'm not going to, there'll be, I'm sure, guys making underwater enclosures, but, there shouldn't be a lot of dust issues.
Is there any plan to is it possible to add phantom power at all to either of the two TRS ports?
I don't think there is. I'm not positive engineering-wise, but I don't think there is, yeah. And
do you guys plan on making any other accessories, like maybe some right-angle adapters for the ports?
I think that'll all be third-party. There have been at least 24 third-party guys that have asked for measurement specs.
Speaking of that, so what happens if the internal battery just dies? Will the power still go through?
Yeah. The idea is like a phone, you may have to charge it before it comes back.
But will DC power still make it through even if the internal's dead?
Yeah, that's the theory. That's the theory. It takes DC and AC voltage. There's, like I said, a dozen third-party guys that want to do external battery packs, so it's a problem but not a problem. Right now, it's kind of one of those things where we don't want it to get down to death, but it will charge. It's supposed to be like a phone. If it dies, you may have to charge it a little bit. Like when your iPhone dies and you plug it in, you go to turn it on, it does not turn on. It needs to charge for a little bit in order to be able to turn on. So
Gotcha.
It's probably going to function a lot like that.
And to be even more ridiculous, have you guys thought about the second camera and how many years down the road that is?
We don't work like that. We'll end up in a bar somewhere in November and figure out where we go. The problem is, we want to make products that fill a need that hasn't been done. And we thought for this camera, there's somewhere between DSLR and cinema camera, so there's a clear need for this. For us to say, let's build a 4K compressed camera, there's already guys doing that. So if we look, as an example, look at Resolve. Why don't we build a $1,000 Resolve control surface? Because there's 10 guys doing it, and they do a really good job doing it. If they all were horrible and they were overcharging people for it, we would feel a need. But there's no need to make a $1,000 Resolve panel because there's lots of guys that do a really good job of that. So could we make a different camera? Sure, but it'd have to be really compelling. If we found a sensor that was amazing and we could build something that was undone. This camera is new because it's a new camera. It doesn't compete directly with anything.
Pretty much everything else,
it does, but
I really hope you guys do influence RAW and much higher bit rates than other cameras.
I think one of the most exciting things for us is Grant kind of had a touching moment after the show, and he was like, amongst the many different things that Blackmagic's done, this camera has probably changed the way cameras will be built from now on. And that's a big thing to be able to do and say, for guys that have never made a camera before, to come out and say, we've probably changed the way people think about building cameras going forward. That's exciting.
Great, thanks.
You're welcome.
That's autofocus Dan.